Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever it is, wherever you are, welcome to the Good Values podcast. Now, this week I have a lovely conversation with someone who I've never met before, and it's another connection from my friend Mike Davies, whose podcast I will put here. He was another fantastic guest, and he's linked me up with two people so far, and I've heard that he's got another that he's going to be sending my way. So I very much appreciate his assistance with getting guests for this podcast. This week is a fantastic person, a very talented artist, and someone who doesn't work professionally selling artwork, but in my opinion should do because she is so talented. Now, this is a fantastic chat that we have. I had to edit it down because just trying to make the time more digestible for the audience, but I could have spoken to her all day, a very easy person to talk to. So this is my conversation with Gwenllian Lewis. If you can, could you introduce yourself for the audience, please?
Hi, my name is Gwen, and I currently live in France, but I'm actually Welsh. And I spend several months of the year in North Wales, where my mother lives. And the rest of the time I'm with my husband in France. And I work with languages as an English language editor and also a translator from French, German, and Italian into English. And I also do my own artwork and I do educational stuff, which I'm trying to get going now with a blog and a website, so I can, instead of just trying to work with students once they get to the writing stage, to try and sort of work with them to iron out their problems with writing and with the English language before they get there. So that's another project that I'm sort of into. But I suppose I went to art college after I left school. I did the foundation course, and then I just got caught in the machinery, and I ended up doing a degree, but I really didn't have any sense of direction with that. So I didn't believe I could make a living out of my artwork. And so I set off on a life of many jobs in every sector, and so went back into education in my 30s. And I studied languages because I'd been waitressing and housekeeping and everything for many years. So I'd been abroad, and I'd, sort of worked on my French that I learned at school and become pretty good, fluent, I suppose, and German. And I went to university, I went to Bangor University, and I studied languages, French, German, and Italian, and became a teacher. So I took all that route, and then I sort of came back to art in the end. I'm sort of feel that is what I should always have done, and I should have believed in myself and just set out, and I'd be really doing something by now. So I suppose I've got quite a lot of regrets about that. I didn't believe in myself. I don't feel I was supported at art college particularly. I didn't come from a family that was involved with the arts either, so I don't think they would really know how to help me, to guide me with it, So that's my story so far. But I like where I am, actually. I could be better off financially, but I think many people would say the same, I like where I am. I like the kind of confidence I've got. I'm still not really too fond of my own work, but I can see some point to it, even if I don't really entirely know where it's going. The interesting thing is that Francis Bacon didn't really become a full-time artist, or a successful painter till he was in his 50s, but he said it took him that long to find something that he wanted to make art about. So
what is it you'd like to do? Do you have an idea in your head when you said I'd like to be making something? Can you project anything that you admire or that you aspire to create or to be engaged with regarding art?
I think I believe in a collective consciousness as well as a collective unconscious. I think there is a collective consciousness, and that's why we have trends. I think the ubiquity of media, the internet and everything, is such that everybody is hearing more about more things all of the time worldwide. And this means the whole of mankind can sort of achieve awarenesses together. It's not happening right now, but I can see it happening at some time, that everybody would sort of be on the same page, or like huge populations would be on the same page about things, just like what we should or shouldn't be doing, what's going to work for the human race and what's not. It sounds idealistic, but we do see it happening. We see people, big movements of people saying this is wrong, we shouldn't be doing this, we should be taking care of the planet, we should be recycling things, not wasting things, we should be, taking care of the ill and the poor and the old, and this all happening, like millions of people all thinking the same things. And I think as an artist, you can catch things that are in this consciousness, almost in the air, and you can express them. And I think if you can, this is what great illustrators and cartoonists and satirists have been doing for centuries. It's like when we used to have papers delivered to the house, open the newspaper and there'd be like a Gerald scarf or, this drawing, and people would laugh and it would be, yes, bang on. That's just how a lot of people thinking the same thing. And I really, really believe that matters more to me, to get that one hit every, like on a regular basis, to get those hits out. Like, my God, yeah, that is so true. That's really, God, I was just thinking that this morning, open up, there is the picture, open the website, there is the image, there's the image and the legend, the caption. And I think that is something that really captures my energy and inspires me more than producing beautiful objects, which I consider to be like almost the commodities, and they're like interior design. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that's wonderful for people who feel that is their thing. It's never felt like anything that particularly engaged me to sort of have an exhibition where I thought, well, I'll sell these paintings or whatever, have an exhibition, people go look at it hanging on a wall in this room, and then sell some and move on. But that's not really something that lights my fire. Whereas art as communication, art as connecting people and building communities is something which really motivates me,
Well, if I could, I'd like to ask, what is it that you value about art?
What do I value about? It stimulates my imagination, it stimulates me mentally, and I'd say that it even gives me a physical buzz. Like, if I feel low and I go to an art exhibition, I feel exhilarated after. So it's feeding me in a way, it's feeding me in some sort of psychological, emotional way that other things don't. That's what matters, I think. Sometimes things are just so beautiful, like the colors, like of Monet or some, the impressionists that were working a lot with color, or more recently, some of the abstract artists that have used color, in a very sort of emotive way. That you think, wow, I could just drink this in, Sometimes I don't even particularly like the art that's there, but just the energy in the gallery just does something for me. The fact that somebody has stepped outside of the humdrum and they've created this thing and they have thought processes, it gives me some energy,
Absolutely. Yeah.
You get an insight into another world, get an insight into the world of that artist. I think that's the thing.
How do you manage your tasks and things like that? How do you go about doing that in your life?
Well, I mean, on a practical note, I use Trello, and I use Trello daily to write down all the things that I need to do. And there are different sort of ways of using these interfaces, like just write down absolutely every single thing you'd like to achieve that day, down to brushing your teeth. It's as mundane as that. And then just shift it into priority and high priority and low priority columns. So it's pointless trying to think of what's the most important thing you've got to do that day. Just write down everything you want to achieve and then decide what jumps out at you. Right, I've really got to get that done. And just do that. So on a practical note, I do that. The rest of the time is kind of dictated to me, just because with the paid work I do, I have a deadline. So I've got to get it done. There'll be times my husband's working away for part of the time, like during the week he's working away in another city. So the days when he's not here are very different from the days when he is, because it just changes something when someone is around. You want to do something like spend some time with them, or you're going to do dinner properly and eat with them, so that's also something which is kind of dictated to me, how my day is going to be. Like the days my husband's here, then maybe there'll be more of a social or entertainment component, do something, go somewhere, as I say, have meals together. And then whenever there's a gap, I also try to get to the gym a couple of times a week as well, 2 or 3 times a week. So that takes time. And then the rest of the time, if I feel that I've got like a good block of a few hours, I work on my studies. But what I was trying to do, and I did get into the swing of it for a while, is actually to prioritize the artwork and do daily drawing, which means that it would be the first thing that I go to when I wake up. Now I've lost the thread of that, because actually when I wake up, all I want to do is just check my emails, and I'm in a panic because I've got like paid work to do, and I'm just worried I won't get it done, and I have to start as early as possible. So I've lost the thread of that. But ideally that would be as part of it, almost a sort of a meditation or a good start to the day, is to prioritize the artwork, because you'll achieve what you prioritize. If I want to be making a successful career as an artist, and that's what I should be prioritizing.
What materials do you use? Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
Materials?
Yeah.
No, it's fine. Well, I use according to what's going on. Like I did Inktober challenge, so I was using all ink for that. And I do use ink quite a lot. I use Chinese ink, the stick.
Oh yeah.
I like to start with that. I like to start with grinding my own ink, and it's quite diluted. So you start with washes or whatever. I quite like drawing with fine liners and dipping ink as well. And I like using pro markers, because I think these translate very well onto a screen, onto Instagram and so on. The colors are quite acid and strong.
Yeah.
And sometimes I use oil pastels but it's often mixed media anyway. If I start with watercolors or watercolor pencils, I very often end up using oil pastels over, because I prefer the intensity and the texture. I like graphite. I like watercolor graphite in powder as well as sticks. And paints, all kinds of paints. That's quite traditional, really, I suppose.
Yeah.
I like also painting texturizing medium as well.
What's
sometimes,
that, sorry?
Or even to texturizing medium, which is like a gel. You can get different sort of textures of the medium. Like it can be very thick, or it can be, much less solid, and you can actually build texture.
I don't think I've heard of that.
Okay, I'll send you details, but it's just if you want to build up texture either under what you're painting or over, because I find very often wants to build something up more, so it's got like almost like a concrete, it's got relief, almost like a relief on the picture surface. That's what I've been using. I think because I'm posting to social media, I tend to stay quite traditional, because I find that that's within people's acceptance zone. So I'm not sort of doing collaging or so much of that kind of thing. But
where do you find your inspiration for making artwork?
Well, I'm always sort of thinking about things. Films are very inspiring to me. For example, I wasn't even thinking about making any artwork, but I watched Hunger yesterday. You know,
fantastic!
the
I love
film.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and you know, it is a great film. But there was a scene where Bobby's talking to the priest, and it was just just those two guys and the way the light was and the shadows, and I just, oh my God, I've just got to stop this here and screenshot it and keep this, because I don't know how I'm going to do it without coming across as like really political if I do some artwork about this. But this is just incredible, the atmosphere of this dialogue. And there isn't an awful lot of talking in the film apart from when he's talking to the priest, because they're not really, it's all very visual, isn't it? It's all in the faces and all in the scenes.
Yeah.
But then he has this dialogue with the priest where so much comes out to the surface. I thought, God, this is so atmospheric. And that's how it would be for me. And I'll just have to screenshot things or just stop the video and draw from it. And it gives me a lot of ideas, you know. I prefer to work with moving images. Rather than still. I like the fact that, I suppose this is another Francis Bacon thing as well. I didn't like him when I was younger, but as I got older, I've got to really like where he's coming from. It's this idea that when we look at things, they're not still, are they? There's always the movement, even in the atoms within the thing. The atoms are all moving, aren't they? The energy is all moving. So sometimes some of the things that I work on for a long time, I think they're just so still and monolithic, you know. And then the things which are just sort of doing a few hours and get them out there as fast as possible without urgency, even though they're very far from perfect. I feel that they haven't lost the moment, they haven't lost the energy.
Well, have you ever tried plein air, where you go out into the world and just do either urban sketching or painting or anything? Have you tried that? Yeah. Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, well, I used to do that. I used to do that rather than work from images, because that's the way I was trained in fine art. You know, they think it's somehow superior. And I was doing that in the summer. The thing I like about that, I do like the sense, this is my vista, and I'm going to draw these things. But sometimes I feel it's a bit pointless. But what actually happens is I end up in conversations, which is what makes the whole thing really good. I was down because it's like a sort of marina in the city I'm in. This is kind of a marina area. And I went and sat down there and did some drawing in the summer. And a couple of people stopped and I had some conversations with them, you know, and that made it special. I had a couple of little charcoal drawings. They're on my Instagram, actually. But I just, I've done my daily drawing. But what I really liked was chatting to those people that had passed, you know. That's what is memorable for me. And I thought that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't have sat there drawing. There was that exchange between people that made it all worthwhile, you know. We're gathering around another totem pole.
Yeah, I was just thinking that for me, plein air has always been a real lesson in time and light, and how the day gets described by the availability of light and shadow when you start, and how you structure out your drawing starts to be more difficult as time is being whittled away throughout the day, and you don't realize the shifting shadows and the movement of the light until you see a dramatic shift in your subject. And I thought that was a really nice kind of, you know, lesson in observation and in sort of seeing the moment disappear. So that kind of change in everything, if the atmosphere is just something which is so fleeting, that you really have to be efficient in your marks and your considerations.
Yeah, you've always got that urgency to capture that moment. That's true. I hadn't really considered that, you know. in response to your other question. But that was definitely a thing because of going down later in the day and you've got limited daylight left for capture things. But when I first sit before a subject, the first thing I do is I'm thinking of the composition anyway. Like, so that's not going to change really. No. So then you've got the skeleton of the drawing, and then afterwards you're working across as a whole anyway. You know, once that's done, you're working across the whole thing. And so you're not fiddling with this detail and then moving to that detail and moving to that detail. You've got to sort of keep on working across the picture surface, haven't you? Because that what happens up there has to be in the same place, has to be in the same sort of dimension as what's happening down here. Otherwise it'll be awkward, it'll be dissonant. So to maintain that harmony then, and that's what was so amazing about the Impressionists, you know, with their way they could just get the whole thing so harmonious, quite complex paintings. But yeah, that's where I know I would be in a better place if I'd sort of kept with art from teens, you know, to now and made it my thing. I think I would be in a better place. But Auerbach is an interesting artist. You know, he was one of these people that he worked very fast, but he would spend so long on one image because he'd just keep redoing until it was done, you know, to the point where he would actually go through the paper and then he'd have to patch the paper and he would just be constantly looking for the essence of what he was looking at, you know, and completely effacing. Just efface what you've done before. It's not it, so discard. Working on the same drawing, but just efface. Keep redoing until it's there, you know. And I think that it never works for me. If I mess something up and I go and try and start again, it never works for me. I have to battle it in that image. I have to battle whatever it is in that image. And I've never done a drawing I didn't have to struggle with.
What happens when you do it again? You know, when you say it doesn't work for you, what happens when you repeat the image? Do you lose the energy, or is the enthusiasm gone and you don't finish? Or what happens when you try an image for a second time?
You mean when I go to another
you know, when you say it doesn't work for me, if you're struggling, and you go, I have to start again. What happens when you start again? Can you just not do it? Do you just
it's just not it?
No.
I just think, well, I can't do this because this is going to be another image. This is going to be something else. So if I want that image to work, I've got to work on that other image, because what I'm starting now, the thing is that you've got to reiterate so much when you start again. Yeah. That your actual losing the plot is part of the process. So if I'm working on a drawing and I said, this is absolute rubbish, that's completely wrong. If I then discard it and get another piece of paper and try and start again, I've got to reiterate. I'm actually got to a certain stage of the other image where I have to fight through something, and that's not going to be comfortable. You know, everybody's different, so it's not prescriptive what I was saying, that that's how it has to be. That's how it works for me, you know, that I have to fight through and feel that sense that I just wish I was that person that could just do things and it flowed, you know, like I just wish that like one day I could just draw something and I knew what it was going to look like in the end, and it would flow and it would be as I wanted it. But it just doesn't seem to work like that for me.
I don't think
something else.
From what I've heard, every artist I've ever heard, from professional to amateur, says that there's no artist who can envision the end, and it's always a discovery making the art.
Yeah, well, I know that people do say it, different people say it, I suppose, that it's all in the discovery, you know. But I just think it would be nice not to have to go through. I'm sort of getting back used to it now, the turmoil of it, you know. There's that feeling, oh God, you know, it's just the hardest thing in my life. It's the hardest thing I do in my life, you know. And I do a lot of what I do is quite difficult. And my work is not lots of jobs I've done that aren't very difficult, like simple jobs like cleaning or, washing up jobs or whatever. That now a lot of the work I do is difficult. It's demanding, mentally really demanding. And art is still the hardest thing I do. And I think, why would I want to put myself through this? Why do I want this challenge all the time? I don't know whether my drawings are paintings or my paintings are drawings, because I use both brushes and drawing media,
That's fantastic.
I can't really say what they are, to be honest. So it's good to, sort of get away from that preconception. There's only one type of mark you can make, or limited marks you can make with ink. You can be, I feel very free. As soon as I'm working with ink, I feel really free. I feel way freer than with pencil, which you can rub out. You don't have to worry about making mistakes, as it were. You can rub things out. I don't care with ink. I'll just get white ink and I'll blot it out, or Tipp-Ex or anything. I'll just cover it, just redo, stick a piece of paper over, redo it. But I feel freer with ink. It's weird, isn't it? How that media is always has been from the beginning. Ink has always given me a sense of liberation. I could do stuff with it.
Does your work have a palette? Do you work with specific colors, or do you try to achieve a certain kind of brightness or softness in the colors? What's your preference there?
Well, when I was a teenager, I had a box of, very early on, I got into working with oil pastels my own way. I've got my own way of working with them. And I had a box, and there were like 12 standard colors. And to be honest, they're the ones I'm sort of thinking with art. And even though I've got now, for example, I've got quite a lot of pro markers with lots of different nice colors, quite a range. I get used to using certain colors, because I'm not so much one for mixing colors, I guess. I like to overlay. It's a different way of mixing color, is to overlay, like with ink as well. You get away from the muddiness, even with watercolors. If you've got washes over washes, you have a different effect. It's a different way of mixing. And it's the same with pastels, oil pastels, for example, where you're just overlaying colors over each other. And that's how I mix, because it's almost like pointillism, where the colors are mixing actually on the surface of your eye is doing the work. It's not the artist mixing the colors. Your eye is mixing the colors. And so that's quite interesting to me with inks as well. You just washes of ink, and then the transparency works to create a different effect. With that. So I quite like that. So my palette, I do have my sort of go-to colors. But every single thing I do will have a different palette within itself. Then,
That's lovely. Well, I suppose, speaking about preferences and things, and it's not even much of a preference question, but it's more of it's a question that I ask every guest, and it's something which I think is quite important to ask artists, because I think the answer is just lovely to hear. And that's, what's the most beautiful thing you've seen today?
The sun coming through the window, I guess. Because it's like all glass at one side of our apartment. It's all like French windows. And then there's nets over there. And we haven't seen the sun that much recently. And I really love it. And it's coming through sort of a mist as well.
Oh, lovely.
So it's like we're basking in light, as you can see. That's really, really beautiful thing.
Well, I suppose the other question that I always ask people, it's a double barrel question, but each part is interesting to hear from the artist as well. And it's, what do you like and what don't you like about your own artwork?
I don't think I'm very good. I think that's what I don't like. I don't think I'm very good. Technically.
About what? Technically, I was going to say, what aspects do you think you're not good at? Because I think that you've got proportions really good in, when you do faces, I think you've got the proportions really good, really accurate, whereas most people struggle there to get the eyes balanced and not too close together, not too far apart, not too large. And, you know, I think you've got a real good sense of that, and a really good sense of light. So I'm curious, what aspect are you seeing that you're not satisfied with?
Well, I suppose it's, I see it almost like a sort of a punk, if you know what I mean. Like it's sort of like the difference between punk and polished music. But I actually like punk, to be honest.
Punk. And I was raised on punk.
So there's a thing, and it's like, it's more, this is the weird thing. A lot of what I like is very raw. Like, out of singers, I'd rather listen to Janis Joplin than the most, I'm not going to mention other names, but polished singers, you know. I'd rather, I prefer the rawness. It's the cracks in the voice that give the emotion, you know. A couple of pieces that I have liked, I think have got like a spirituality about them. Like mood. There's a mood. If something's working, it'll have a mood in it. I think that ability, because one of the criticisms of visual arts, still visual arts, is it can't evoke emotion like music can, or theatre can, or film can. And I'm not satisfied with that. I think that visual art is just as capable of making people feel things, but it's just we're not making that a priority. Maybe, I mean, Francis Bacon differentiated between what he called illustration and painting, and illustration is about a subject, whereas for him painting was the subject. That there's a more engagement, you know, that the onlooker feels that painting, feels what the painter felt when he did it. So I guess those times. So we worry about getting things right, whereas, you know, we could maybe enter into the spirit of the thing more and forget about the being accurate, as it were, or conforming, you know, forget the conformity and just enter into the spirit of it, and, you know, then somebody will feel something, what you feel. Yeah, that's lovely. Is there any social media that you'd like to direct people to? Yeah, well, there's my Instagram, which is Gwenllian Lewis Drawings. At the moment, that's the only thing that is really ready, I guess, artistically is really ready for me to promote. You know, I put all my artwork on there. It's just artwork. I think there's only one photograph of me on it. I'm not going to put other stuff. I know people say you need air in it, you need to have other things, whatever, but no, I just want to keep it as a gallery of all the things that I'm doing, or my sketchbook, as it were, my online sketchbook. I'm exactly the same. Yeah, my Instagram account is just wall-to-wall images of drawings and paintings and nothing else really, because I don't fancy injecting lifestyle into that grid, to be honest. But is there, I'll leave the link in the description below, but is there anything that you're developing at the moment that you'd like to mention that people might check? Is there any domains or anything worth including? There will be when I finish doing it. There's a website that I haven't finished yet and I haven't published it, but it's called Francophilia. Okay, Francophilia. Francophilia. Well, if you send me that link, I mean, not the link to it finished, but whenever it's finished, I will update this podcast so that people can access it. Yes. So check back, anyone who's watching. Yeah. Yeah, thank you very much for that. Yeah. So Francophilia, that's an interesting name. Can I just ask, what's the origin of the name Francophilia? Well, years ago, I was single and miserable, and I joined a dating site, and I thought, oh, this is just, I just can't imagine being serious on this dating site. I just can't imagine trying to post some glamorous shot of me and just like trying to be all serious about this. So I dressed up as a witch. I had like pointy hat and everything. And my username was Francophilia, because I thought that's just a brilliant name for a witch. I don't know, it just seemed like a really witchy name. So I did this. So I thought at least like anybody contacting me would have a sense of humor, at least could see the joke. And then I'd know that ice would be broken. It would be easier to get to know someone. Anyway, that stuck with me. I thought, well, I've got to keep that name. I've got to, because I like that name. And then I thought, well, I'm Francophile. I'm in France now. I'm Francophile. And I thought, well, that would be a good name for a website. And I quite like all sorts of fairy tale and horror and folky. So I don't watch horror movies as such, but I like the supernatural. I like supernatural things in visual arts, I like supernatural. And I thought, well, Francophilia fits. Francophilia is a kind of this witchy character. And I thought, well, I think that would be a good name, good title for the website.
It is. It's very memorable and very curious. That's why I thought I have to stop and ask. But yeah, I'm going to.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad that it has some effect. It's hard to find something original, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
With them.
Yeah. Thank you for being a guest on the podcast. Really appreciate your time, and I encourage everyone to check out the links below and show some support. And I'd like to have you on again in the future if you'd be a guest as well.
Thank you very much. I've really enjoyed talking to you. It really made me think about things, Simon. You really, just got me to reflect, which I think was always a good thing, isn't it?
That's lovely. Oh, thank you. Yeah. Excellent.
And thank you to the viewers and listeners as well that got this far.
Yeah. Thank you for watching, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Okay, so that is the episode done. Now, wasn't she just absolutely lovely? She had so much to share. She was such a sincere person. And the conversation did go longer, and I might include some clips of what we talked about afterwards, just little bits and pieces, because it is relevant to art and art making. But like I said, I tried to edit down as much as I could, because I get quite chatty with someone like that as well. It's very easy to just start being a casual conversation. And I know that a lot of podcasts are more casual and conversational, but I've tried to rebrand my podcast from Studio Buddies, which was just a chat with a friend, to something like this where it's interviewing someone who I find quite interesting and who can kind of share their own thoughts and feelings about the process of making art and engaging with different practices. So I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, then please check out her social media. I've got a link to her Instagram down below, and in the future I will be putting a link to her website in the description of this video. So if you come across this and it's not November 2022, then check in the description for the website. But if it is November 2022 or whenever, check out her Instagram. She's got fantastic pictures in there. I love her account. It's phenomenal. And I think she really deserves the support. Some people just really deserve the love and support of an art community. And this is one of those people who I think is, criminally underrated as a talented art maker. But yeah, I will be updating the description below with her website when it's up and running. And I hope to have her on again for another chat. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next episode.